Next, anitas May 15. May 15. Now, May 15, so inhitabo, rendered accounting services on account. Balik 30,000. So, iyang difference lang aning May 10 is, ang May 10 is for cash. Ang sa May 15 daw is on account. So, meaning, kolektahonon pa nimo. So, therefore, the account affected is your accounts receivable. Next is, since same gihapon, rendered service. So, service revenue. Rendered services on account. So, the amount is 30,000. Next, another transaction, May 15. Paid Meralco bills of 3,500. Now, unsa imuhang affected ng account? Diba? Affected account mo or Meralco bill is already your expense. Diba? Expense na nimo imuhang bill. What kind of expense? It is considered as a utility expense. And then, what other account is affected? Of course, kay nibayad ka. So, the affected is your cash. So, what happened is na-increase sa imuhang expense, na-decrease sa imuhang asset or sa imuhang cash. So, increase in your expense is imuha siyang debit, and then for a decrease in your cash is imuha siyang credit. Meralco bills. So, the amount is 3,500. So, let's see. Next is, we have another transaction for May 15. Paid salaries for the period. So, of course, salaries is, unsam sa siya? Muna sa siyang expense. Diba? Kaya na-incur naman na nimo. Manang salaries sa imong mga employees is considered as your expense. Then, to increase your expense is imuha siyang debit. So, salaries, expense. And then, since nagbayad ka, of course, cash. Then, paid salaries. The amount of 15,000. So, kana. Now, as you can see here, ang nahitabo is if this or kani siya is an example of a simple entry. Diba? Simple entry na siya. Kaya naman, again, 1 debit, 1 credit. Now, as you have noticed, is parehas siya tanan nga May 15. Again, parehas siya tanan nga May 15. So, pwede nini mo siya i-compound entry. Again, pwede nini mo siya i-compound entry since same date man siya. So, atong mag-try tag compound entry. So, kung compound is isagol nimo ang mga debit, isagol po nimo ang mga credit. So, in this case, diba, na kay accounts receivable. What else? Imuhang utilities and your salaries. Now, imuhang credit nga side is your service revenue. Service revenue ug imuhang cash. Now, as to your explanation, pwede na ninyo mo isagol. Rendered services. Rendered services. Services on account. Paid Meralco bills. And paid salaries. So, as to the amounts, isagol na po na nimo. 30, 3, 5, o 15. Now, as you can see, ang imuhang cash diri is same rabi ang cash niya sa imong utilities o salaries expense. So, imuha ra nang i-sagol. 18, or imuha ra nang i-add. 18,500. So, this area, kay mo total gyapon na siya, or same gyapon na siya og total sa imuhang credit side. So, again, dapat, whether compounded or simple entry, is dapat balance gyud gyapon na imuhang debit o credit. So, ato lang ning i-highlight because this is compounded. So again, muna siya imong example sa imuhang compounded na entry. Now, pwede both ways sa imuhang buhaton, kani simple or compounded. If you are still confused on how to compound entries, focus sa simple na journal entry. Again, simple journal entry lang sa ang i-apply. At least, kabaw lang mo sa concept of the compound journal entry. But as of now is, kada transaction date, if ever kada line item, is, if simple entry lang na siya, is a simple entry. Pero, ayaw lang sa isagol ang mga same date transactions. Again, ayaw lang sa isagol ang mga same date transactions para di mo ma-confuse. So, kada type of transaction is ilahi-lahi og journal entries. Again, kada type of transaction, ilahi-lahi sa og journal entries. Ayaw lang sa mo pag compounded if same date. So, next we have May 20. May 20, collected 10,000 from customers. Of course, nakakollect ka. So, nadawat nga cash. And then, sis na-collect naman imo, so, mugamay na imuhang dawatonon. So, mo decrease imong accounts receivable. Thus, imuha siyang credit. So, collected from customers. So, we have the amount of 10,000. So, ano pa? There. Next, we have May 22. A short-term loan from a local bank was granted in the amount of 50,000. Less 5,000 financing charges. Mr. Kayayan issued a 1-year promissory note. So, unsa nga accounts ang affected? Now, you have more than 2 accounts na nga affected riha. First is, unsa imuhang nadawat? Diba nakadawat daw ka og loan. So, loan is in the form of cash. Now, take note, ang imuhang nadawat nga loan is gilesan nila og 5,000 nga financing charges. So, that financing charges is, unsa man nimo siya? It's already your expense. So, imuhang cash is ni-increase, pero imuhang expense is ni-increase pod. Now, another thing is nag-issue ka og promissory note. So, meaning, na kay utang or ni-increase imuhang utang. Since promissory note man, therefore, what is affected is your notes payable. Now, let's start. Nakadawat daw ka og cash. So, increase imuhang cash. Now, what else? Naka-incur ka og expenses. Na if mo tanaw ka sa imuhang chart of accounts, wala man dito'y bank expenses, di ba? Or wala may financing charges. So, meaning, can be considered as a miscellaneous expense. So, increase imuhang cash, increase po imuhang expense. Now, what else? Since i-issue mo kag promissory note, so ni-increase po ang imuhang notes payable. Diba? So, mana siyang gi-credit. Then, arita, issued a promissory with okay. Now, ang ato ang loan is pila man ato ang bayranan. Atong bayranan gyapon, di ba? Our bayranan is still at 50,000. Now, remember, ang imuhang nadawat or imuhang nadawat nga cash is dili na 50,000 because again na ay less of financing charges. So, meaning ang imuhang expense is 5,000. So, ang imuhang nadawat ra daay nga cash is the net of the charges. So, 45,000. So, again, as I mentioned, dapat balance imuhang debit o credit. Dili ha nga imuhang nadawat diri is 50,000. And then, napay 5,000, then imong notes payable is 50,000 na gyapon. So, di na siya balance. Kay 55 na imong debit niya, imong credit is 50 ra. So, take note pud mo sa wording. So, if mo ingon gani nga less, kani is 50,000, gi-less pa og 5,000, so mo nang 45. But if mo ingon na gani nga ang 50,000 is net na of the 5,000 nga financing charges, so meaning gikuhaan na siya og 5,000 daan. So meaning, ang imong madawat nga cash is kaning tibok nga 50,000 if net of 5,000. Pero since ang gibutan there is 50,000 less pag yun 5,000 nga financing charges, so mo nang 45 ra. Next, we have another thing that is you can see kani siya is also considered as a compound entry. Again, compound entry siya kaya naman duha naman ang imuhang or more than 3 naman ang imuhang account. More than 2 na ang imuhang account. So, you have cash, miscellaneous, ug notes. So, this is an example of a compound entry. Now, as I mentioned ganiha, if ingon ani, kailangan mo siya i-compound. Kaya, of course, one transaction involves 3 accounts. So, meaning, compound entry na gid siya. But if, again, as I mentioned ganiha, kani siya nga case is different from this one. Diba? Mailhan pa lang nimo sa explanation daan. Kani siya is isa ra yung explanation only for this transaction. In this case is daghan yung explanation kay tungod giisa gitingob ra nimo ang daghan nga transactions of the same date. So for now dili kani inyong sundon ha. Ako ra nang gi-show diha for reference pero dili kana inyong buhaton. Ilahi-ilahi gid ninyo ang kada transaction. Maskin same date pa siya, different nga transaction. So, dapat ang explanation, kay isa ra gina siya dihang explanation. Next is, we have May 25. Paid telephone bill amounting to 6,000. So, again, that is an expense. Nakay telephone expense. And then, nag-pay ka. So, nakay cash. Paid telephone bill. So, ana ra gid siya. Mo na gid ni siya ang iyang concept. 6,000. And then you have May 27. May 27. Mr. Kayayan withdraw 20,000 for personal use. So, ni-withdraw siya og 20,000. Na unsa nga account ang affected? So, first, we have, of course, ang pinaka-obvious cash. So, ni-decrease imuhang cash. So, para ma-decrease imong cash, imo siya i-credit. Now, unsa ang imong i-debit? Diba? Ni-withdraw man ang owner, so it involves an equity account. Now, unsa nga specific equity account? Now, we have the diba? Unsa man ang kuan? Withdrawal. So, we have W nga withdrawal. So, withdrawals are contra equity accounts. So, maka-decrease siya sa imong equity account. Iyahang normal balance sa withdrawal na account is a debit. Again, normal balance sa imuhang, normal balance sa imuhang withdrawals is a debit. Now, nganong debit man siya, miss? Remember, it is a contra account. Diba? Ang contra account is opposite ang iyahang normal balance sa kung unsa ang normal balance sa iyang kontrahan. So meaning it is an equity account pero contra equity man siya. So, meaning, ang iyang normal balance is opposite sa normal balance sa normal equity. Diba? So, kung ang normal balance sa imuhang equity account yun is credit, since contra equity account man siya, contra equity man siya, or contra account man siya, so meaning, iyang normal balance is the opposite of the normal balance of the equity account. So, iyang normal balance is debit. Now, in this case, nag-withdraw man ang owner, so ni-increase ang withdrawal sa owner. So, mo nang gi-debit ang withdrawals. Withdrawal. So, we have the amount of 20,000. Then, lastly, we have May 30. At the end of the month, physical count of the office supplies revealed that 5,000 has been consumed. Now, kani, ari na ta nga, diba? Ang atuan na is, unsa ang nahitabo, unsa ang accounts na affected. You have your office supplies na account. Diba? Office supplies man daw. Per take note. Gi-consume na niya ang imuhang office supplies. So, since na-consume na siya, so meaning considered siya as an expense na. So, nidako ang imuhang expense, nigamay ang imuhang office supply nga asset. Kay nagamit naman nimo siya. So, there is a decrease in your office supply. Kay imo namang nagamit. But there is a decrease in your office supply and there is an increase in your office supplies expense. So, debit kag office supplies expense and credit ka og office supplies. So, kani consumed so we have the amount of 5,000. So, this is how you journalize. Kani siya. So, we also have a copy here. Kana. See? So, kana. Oh, there is. Yeah, then you recognize as interest expense. So, you can recognize it as interest expense. Or pwede miscellaneous. Since naman the interest expense, so yeah, we can use interest expense. Interest. I cannot see an interest expense. Let's try to check the chart of accounts. Oh, there is interest expense. Oh, there. Interest expense. Nadeta interest expense. So, muna interest expense ang gamitan. Okay, there are proceeds of loan. So, kana. Oh, and then there is a note here. Take note that the post reference of the journal is not filled up yet in the process of recording. This will be filled in the process of posting. So, kaning folio, wala pa siya sulod or patay butang. Kaya nag-journalizing pa man ta. O yan na nato butangan if mag-posting na ta. Now, that's how you journalize.